Hi, I'm Ryan, and thanks for tuning in to another episode of Arts for the Masses. The arts are alive in Massachusetts, and I get the honor of bringing them right to you, whether you're watching this on WMCT TV out of Marlborough, on cable, or many, many different places online. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, and we're getting shared all over Massachusetts. So thank you for your support and for supporting the arts in your community. And I've got another great opportunity for you coming right at you. Today we have Yorick Ensemble, and they're going to be producing a production of Hamlet. It is coming up very soon, and I'm so excited to have them in the studio with me today. We have Josh Telletman, who is the founder of Yorick Ensemble. We have Colton, who's the director, and we have Michael, who is playing the Hamlet himself. Wait, what's his nickname?
He's the Danish Prince.
The Danish Prince. The only Danish I know is that Entenmann's Danish. So delicious.
Sure is.
So tell me a little bit about Yorick. This is your brainchild, Yorick Ensemble. You are the founder.
Yes.
So how did it all come to be?
So I was shortly out of college and kind of just looking for some more interesting opportunities in our local non-professional scene. It was a combination of, a few factors. One was that I kept not getting jobs due to a lack of experience, thereby losing out on the experience required to get those jobs.
Vicious cycle.
Vicious cycle. And I felt like there was, when you're in college and everything is so kind of elevated and artsy and you want to go to the deep and weird places, I really missed that. So I wanted to create a space, not a literal space, but like an environment where people operating on a pre-professional level could really push themselves and do things with smaller casts and lesser produced scripts and really, continue that sort of development.
That's fabulous because as we all know, and as we look at commercial theater and even some of the smaller professionals, community theaters even, there's such a hard bargain that you have to play as a producer of these houses, balancing, it seems where it leans towards appeasing the audience versus feeding the soul of the performer and the creator. And you've been striking a really cool balance with some of the shows that you've been doing lately, because you're picking some of these shows that aren't as well done, but then they're received incredibly. The last show that you did was
the guy who didn't like musicals.
Yeah, which is a Star Kid production.
It's originally produced by Star Kid.
And it's one of those shows that people that don't know about it have no clue, but there are Star Kid fanatics out there, and I'm sure they came out to see the show.
Oh, they came out in droves.
Yeah, which just shows there are new audiences out there,
I mean, because I am someone who is constantly seeking what is new, what's fresh, what is exciting, I know that there are other people like me out there.
So you don't have necessarily a home theater base,
right?
Which is sort of freeing in a way too, and I'm sure it has its other issues that come up, but you've been able to explore many different spaces, and Hamlet is going to be performed outdoors.
Yes.
Is this your first outdoor production?
This is our second outdoor production.
What was the first?
The first was we did Our Town in my hometown of Northborough in 2021.
Yeah.
As we were sort of coming out of the COVID lockdown, and it started, becoming safe to gather outside.
Yeah.
I was so desperate to just do a play.
Yeah.
As I'm sure many of us were. And we found kind of parallel situations. In Northborough, there was a newly refurbished town common that I saw and immediately said, that's a stage. I want to do a play there.
Absolutely.
And then when the opportunity arose, Our Town just seemed like the perfect choice.
And now where's Hamlet going to be performed?
So that is in Michael's hometown of Needham. He had a similar experience where he drove by this newly refurbished plaza and said, that's a stage.
Perfect. So Is this your first Shakespeare production with Yorick?
This is Yorick Ensemble's first Shakespeare production. Very exciting. It is sort of our namesake.
Yes.
Yorick is the skull that
Yes.
Hamlet speaks to.
Alas, poor Yorick,
Alas,
I
poor
knew
Yorick.
him.
Horatio.
So who's watching this? I don't know, but someone knows what we were referring to there. Yes. So we were joking earlier, and I said, "Why Hamlet? Why not Mamma Mia? Why not Greece? Why?"
Well, I mean...
Well, number one, Mamma Mia
is expensive.
and Greece have nothing to do with your mission.
Exactly. No, a big part of our mission is what I've been saying lately is radical accessibility.
Okay.
We want to be able to share our shows with as many people as we can, get people as excited as possible. We try to keep our ticket prices as low as we possibly can.
And for this particular production...
is available for the low price of $0.
While donations are
encouraged and accepted, it is not a requirement to see the show.
Excellent. Now I'd like to move on to the director, because we're talking about accessibility here, and Shakespeare is something that people either love or find completely foreign to them.
A lot of people are very intimidated by it.
So tell me about what your approach is to this production of Hamlet in terms of accessibility and your vision overall.
Yeah, absolutely. So on the terms of accessibility and Shakespeare in general, I always find that the best Shakespeare, and I don't mean the glitziest, the highest budget, but the most true Shakespeare is accessible. Even though the language is perceived as flowery, I would argue that 98% of Shakespeare's language isn't flowery in the sense that it's not superficial, it's not icing on the top. It is linked directly to what the characters mean when they say the things that they're saying. When you say something is nice as opposed to something is well, as opposed to something is kind. There's an emotional flavoring to what the characters mean. And we really dig into that. We dig into the specificity of that. And for people's understanding in the audience, we're outside, so we don't have a traditional stage set up for people to have what they're expecting when they go to see Shakespeare, which is a big stage, an open curtain, and then people in big glamorous costumes. And we do have great
Do you have any
costumes.
puff sleeves though? Because I
No
love the
puff
Victorian.
sleeves.
No puff sleeves.
Well, I've seen the promo photos too,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it seems
They look so
very
good.
modern and
Oh,
edgy,
yeah.
and thankfully not steampunk.
No,
So tell me what is the flavor of this Hamlet?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that we definitely want to approach it with a modern energy. I kind of think of this world as its own Denmark, kind of in like a void. This world expands from the centerpiece, which is Hamlet. The entire world grows from him and grows from his experience. He is the center of the world. He's the center of all of these people's lives, and he's the center of the conflict in the world. And a big part of building this play through, I met with all of our actors before we started rehearsing so that I could talk through each of their characters and link them all up in the same world. And a big part of that was talking about the world that happened just before the play. So Hamlet's dad, Hamlet Sr., dies. Claudius, his uncle, killed him. We all have watched The Lion King. And I wanted everyone to have a really, really clear understanding of how Hamlet Sr. ruled and about how Hamlet, as the centerpiece of this world, is an extension of his father's rule. And at this time in Europe, the time that Shakespeare writes this play as, he was occupying a very, very conflict-ridden world. There was never safety for anyone. Whenever there was new royalty, it was always the end of another king's rule. It always very much came after the violence that happened beforehand. So we have Claudius and Gertrude just married very, very quickly after Hamlet's father's death. Everyone in this world is trying to move very quickly past this old world that they were living in, where Hamlet Sr.'s power, this overarching violence that everyone felt in this world, the threat of violence against them. I talk about in rehearsal how whenever they talk about this old world, whenever they think about this old world, they can think of Hamlet Sr. cleaving heads from shoulders that disagreed with him, that when he came to town, that someone died, that he was like Darth Vader, you know?
Yeah, and I suppose by painting this picture of the past, then it really gives you an insight into some of Hamlet's struggles coming in, and what do you want to do that your father did differently? What do you want? What is the pressure to continue doing things the same way? Is that a major part of the story?
And definitely. And when the ghost comes back, and in Shakespeare's time, ghosts could have meant a couple different things. And we leaned into that with the acting work that we did. A ghost could have been a direct one-to-one, this is the energy of the person who died, or it could have been essentially only their anger or only their sadness. And though we get their physical manifestation, we think of the crying woman. The idea of that type of ghost is that they exist only to feel that emotion. So back in their time, when Shakespeare puts this ghost on stage, there is a question of what it means, not if it's real or not. And I personally am always in the camp of the ghost is real. I don't like it being all in Hamlet's mental illness. I think it's way, way more interesting if we have magic in the world. But the question of the flavor of that magic. And what we decided on is that it is definitely Hamlet's father, but explicitly linked through the violence that Claudius, the current king, enacted upon him. So Hamlet gets this, and he gets this connection to his father, but the only connection that he has is that he needs to perpetuate the cycle of violence that his father was enacting on all of these people. This violence that everyone wants to turn away from, to ignore Hamlet and Hamlet's pain. They want to move into a new world, a new liberal world, perhaps, where Claudius, as the new king, is perhaps a little bit lighter than our older king. Maybe we can get a parliament in the future. Maybe we can get a senate in the future. But before any of that can happen, all of the loose ends need to be tied up. And unfortunately, we've got one big loose end who's making himself very, very prominent in everyone's lives. In the first scene, Claudius addresses everyone, and then as soon as he addresses Hamlet, everyone's eyes go to him. Everyone's countenance drops, and the entire scene shifts because now they have to acknowledge the world that they were just living in.
Wow.
The world that they're trying to escape from, that violence and that fear at any given scene that you could be in. Someone's head could be on the chopping block. And Hamlet comes in and he just lives there. He vibes through that world. But as well, there's this contempt for the turning away from his father that is there, that brings him and his violence in. And even though he loved his father, he was connected to him, and he has that same, that effortless power, like Anakin Skywalker and Luke Skywalker. He's like our Luke. Unfortunately, our Luke isn't as good. I like to think of Hamlet very much as a product, in the sense that we are all products of the environment that we live in. All of our characters, not just Hamlet, have that energy to them. I've taken a lot of time and effort to imbue that, or all of them.
I can tell, and you speak so passionately about it. I would watch your one-man production of Hamlet. The way
thank
you're spilling it out for me right now.
Come to the Needham one.
There you go. So, but I wonder how all of this is translated when you're in an outdoor space without the convention of a proscenium stage where it's so easy to direct people's attention and keep things focused. That must be one of your challenges.
Oh yes, absolutely it was. And the way that we're doing our staging is we're doing alleyway. We're doing a bit of a weighted alleyway. So the stage is one big strip underneath fairy lights that are all above, which is very, very pretty. It lends a great lighting to it and a great ambiance for the scene that is mostly dark. The way that we represent the world is using a lot of gestural language. And what I mean by that is that when we have our characters placed in the scene, and we also, another device that we use is we have lanterns. And what happens is we'll have ensemble members take these lanterns and then place them at the four corners of whatever the scene is. Along this strip, we'll find ourselves a spot in it. They'll place those lanterns, and then when the lanterns are turned on, and when someone walks between them, they embody that world. They become into the world.
It sets your little boundary
Yeah,
areas.
it sets our little boundary area. But all of the ensemble members outside of those lanterns are still there. They're embodying what I like to think of as the theses of their characters, kind of an in-between state between their character and their actor body, where they're lending their perspective to all of the events that are happening. They're sitting there with the audience. But then there are these moments when the words that the characters in the world say, they bring the words into the space. And as they bring the words into the space, the ensemble members melt into the world. So for instance, there's a moment earlier on that many versions of Hamlet skim across in trying to paint Hamlet in a better light, when Ophelia speaks about him breaking into her room and he grabs her by the arm and threatens her, really, with that violence, just stares at her eyes, freaks her the heck out, and then leaves. We're representing that just a little bit off stage. We have ensemble members. As soon as Ophelia remembers that scene, she paints Hamlet into the space there. Those ensemble members enact that violence around her. They are not Hamlet and Ophelia, but the audience will see that grab. They'll see the connection of those actors. And then as she comes back into the scene, those actors melt back into their bodies, and they're continuing to watch the play. We also fully enact the pirates bit. Hamlet is sent to England, but saved by pirates and brought back to Denmark by them. And we enact that out. As Horatio is reading the letter that Hamlet sent, he takes that letter and he paints all of the actors there, and we have them reenacting Hamlet being captured by the pirates and being brought back to England by them. There are a bunch of places throughout the script where we bring the words out into the space, into this ethereal in-between space that we have that represents what the characters are talking about. And that makes it clearer to the audience what's happening, but it also gives the actors this really, really great connection to be able to be in their mind and thinking about what's happening, and then to take what's in their mind and press it on those ensemble members. And the connection that everyone has had throughout this process has really, really lifted it all up that way. And I think it does make it more accessible. Everyone understands what everyone is saying. And that is really, really important to Shakespeare. I can't tell you how many productions are done where they just allow the words to sit for themselves. And you can. But I think it is extremely necessary to not only speak the words, but to truly physicalize them. That doesn't mean act out every single gesture.
Well, that's what I was thinking. Is sometimes, and with Shakespeare especially, it's easy to fall into that trap of being demonstrative. Whereas I really see here the sense that you're embracing a strong physicality, but you aren't painting every line and joke in a way that we have to get you to understand this. You're painting it in a way that it is a part of the whole production, how we express ourselves.
Yes, very much so. I like to think of it as flavoring. And in musical theater, it's often said that when a character cannot express what they are saying through words, they sing, and when they can't express what they're saying through song, then they dance, and there's this growth of expression. I like to think of that growth of expression in this show as it starts in the space as conversation, words as communication, and then those words grow into expression, into what they are painting from their minds into the space. And then that expression grows into physicalization. And when they talk about what they are talking about, whether it is contemplating suicide, as Hamlet does throughout the play, or talking about, political intrigue happening off stage, or, things that other characters are doing at the same time, I love that bubbling of the thing that happens just off stage, always encroaching in on where the actors are and where the characters are on stage. Our world is very much always living in that ethereal space. The whole alleyway that we have underneath the fairy lights is the whole stage. And then we draw a little square, a little slice of cake of that world to take out for each scene, making sure that each scene delivers exactly what it needs to, and also whirls in nicely to the next scene. Everything has to be connected, and everything has to be pointed directly in this world.
Sounds beautiful. Now, speaking of our contemplative Hamlet, Michael, you've been so patient over here. I know you're just running lines in your head. This is a big undertaking here.
Yes, it is.
And it's also, in some ways, it must be a dream role for you to take on one of these iconic roles known to be played by so many famous actors over time. Everyone has put their stamp on it. So what excites you about Hamlet?
There's so much to Hamlet as a character. There's so many layers and angles that come around. My therapist says that Hamlet is the most psychologically interesting character, like therapeutically interesting character ever written. And there's so much to unpack. I mean, some people think of Hamlet, I think maybe the common conception is right, ruffled collar, skull in hand, chin up, and saying these very famous words. But Hamlet is a college kid. He's come back from college for the funeral of his father and the second marriage of his mother. And that puts him in a very vulnerable stage of his life. He's not fully developed. He is not the man he will become. He is smart and he is capable. He's charismatic. He's popular.
Well, I always ask actors, what part of you are you bringing to the character? And
right.
you just said and that's it, charismatic, popular.
And that's it, and that's all there is to him. But all of these things are curses as well as blessings. They're complications. When the ghost of Hamlet Sr. shows up to Hamlet, this warlord, and says, your uncle killed me. You should kill him. You must kill him. What Hamlet does, the things that Hamlet does in response is he hatches schemes. He thinks and he pontificates and he monologues and he manipulates because that is how, because again, he's smart, he's charismatic, he's capable. And his father really just meant walk up to him and put a knife between his ribs. Like, you don't need to be doing all of that. But Hamlet is so ensconced, enveloped by the fact that his name is on the play. He's so important to himself, to the people around him, that so much of what happens in the play is Hamlet wrestling between how much action he is able to take and how much he is able to affect the world, and the realization of how much the world is able to affect him back. And that is where the tragedy lies. And underneath all of this is a very, very simple story about a boy and his mother.
Now let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah.
Because as history has explored Hamlet and Shakespeare over time, they've developed so many theories, and they've driven so deep into Hamlet and his relationship with his mother, and is it this weird thing? And, is it a weird thing? And I just have to wonder, what would Shakespeare think? The amount of work that you're doing on Hamlet, I wonder what the original intention was, and if we're still honoring that, or if we've taken some things too far, or if it's just how we read things now in 2025.
So we were actually talking about this in rehearsal very recently, about the Laurence Olivier production of Hamlet, and how that Hamlet is quite noble and heroic, and the tragedy is, look at these things that have befallen him. But and every production approaches where Hamlet falls in the moral grayscale a little differently. Something that we have to remember about Shakespeare's time is that they treated women a little differently than we do now. And Hamlet is a character, and I think this is glossed over a little bit by history. Hamlet is a raging misogynist. And that means something different in Shakespeare's time, when women were not allowed on stage, when women were played by men in drag, because they were just, it was a man's game, you know, as was everything else. And so in the modern day, there are colorings and there are flavors to especially Hamlet's relationship with his mother and with women, that to a modern eye paint him in a slightly different light. What was Shakespeare's intention with Hamlet? Is he a hero? Is he a villain? Is he somewhere in between?
Know.
We'll never know.
Who's to say?
And the text pulls it in so many different directions. Clearly, Hamlet is a hero of his own story. Clearly, Hamlet commits despicable acts. All of this is true, and it is up to us as the bearers of this history to decide what these things mean for us in this moment.
He's got some big, meaty soliloquies in here, famous pieces that people know the first 3 lines of,
Yes.
but don't know the context of. And I just wonder how do you feel any especially large burden to deliver something like that to be or not to be speech in a certain way at a certain expectation, or are you allowing yourself to let it flow from all the hard work that you're doing, and when you get there, you get there?
To be or not to be specifically is a fascinating, piece of this. A lot of the soliloquies come in the middle of scenes, and they are emotional outbursts of Hamlet. Like Colton was saying, when you can't, when speaking is not enough, you turn to the audience and you deliver a soliloquy. But to be or not to be, Hamlet walks on stage at the beginning of the scene, cold, and just says the words and goes right into it. There is no scene before it to kind of carry in. It is as much of a beast in the script, and it is dead in the middle of the play. The challenge with something like that, because everyone knows the words. Everyone knows the words. But the challenge is, what do the words mean? Can I express in my speech, break through you reading the lines off of No Fear Shakespeare in your head and get to the heart and the meaning of it, of what really is, it's not an emotional outburst. It is a very calm, meditative explanation of the conflict in Hamlet's head, to be or not to be. Do I live and suffer in this world where there is so much violence and terribleness, or do I just kill myself? Which is, it's heavy stuff. And, when people just peddle it on the street, it's not, I don't know that people quite contend with the fact that not to be is suicide. And not just suicide, but right now.
Wow.
It's so that speech is as daunting to approach as you would expect it to be.
I'm wondering, as we talk about the physicality and how you have to, in filling this outdoor space, how Hamlet's characterization plays into this physical world. And because my impressions of Hamlet are that he does lean a bit towards the dramatic himself.
Certainly.
So does that give you an additional freedom to dive into things, or does that introduce more challenges in your book as to, am I going too far?
Hamlet has, for a good part of the play, this act, part of his scheme, his plan, is to act like a crazy person. Because Hamlet is, one of his many facets is he's a theater lover.
He is. He puts on his own show.
He puts on his own show, and he directs it with the beret and the folding chair and everything.
Yeah.
And so there is a balance and a dichotomy, dials to turn of this is Hamlet when he is putting the act on. He's acting crazy. This is Hamlet's idea of what a crazy person is and how they act versus what Hamlet actually acts like when he is frightened, mad, scared, maybe a little delusional himself.
And when those two things combine,
exactly. So
we have theater camp.
We have theater camp. So there is, am I going too far? Is a question that would cross Hamlet's mind as he interacts with the other characters, and a question that would never enter his mind as he soliloquizes and acts with himself.
Right.
It is meta in the way that he interacts with the way he is and the way he perceives himself. And I think in this production in particular, we are not shy about the fact that it's Hamlet. Everybody has talked about this play for the last 400 years, and Hamlet's name is on the play.
Just like Mame.
Exactly.
Just like Mame. I've been saying it's just like Mame.
And that's the tagline.
And that's the tagline. Hamlet, it's just like Mame.
All joking aside, it just sounds like it's such committed work that everyone is doing.
Yeah.
That, in my experience, is elevated and almost unexpected in a community theater sense. So bravo to putting in good work and assembling such a fantastic team. We're speaking of the gravity of the piece and the violence of the piece. And I know that we have two of the producers of the show in the room. Michael, you're a producer, and as are you, Josh. So when we're dealing with something that is very violent, and now we are doing it in very much a public space, is that a consideration from your producer hat on how things are reflected in the community that you're performing in?
Certainly.
Yeah.
Certainly. I mean, one of my founding principles of the company is that our primary objective above a good product is an enriching rehearsal process. I find that our enriching rehearsal processes tend to lead to good shows, but our priority is, having a good time in the rehearsal room. So, this is something that we discuss quite a bit. Early on, we decide, what is the language of violence in this version of the show? Is it guns? Is it swords? Is it hand-to-hand? And, it's a constant conversation between ourselves and the cast, and, Colton choreographing our violence for us.
With the help of
Sidney
Grant.
Sidney Grant, who we've worked with many times before. So in the, it sort of goes hand in hand with the conversation of just safety in general, of talking about these very dark subjects, very frankly, really. And that goes in hand with the literal violence of, we know exactly when you see the show and you see the swords clashing, there is no chance of actual we make sure there is no room for error.
Right.
There is a kind of pass that the Shakespearean violence gets. Implications of assassination and swords clinging and clashing together, that is, for better or for worse, somewhat normalized and expected. There is a difference between, fencing and political intrigue and sheer brutality. And I think our production chooses to use the image of the brutality in very, very selective points, because it really, putting on a show like Hamlet, it really is come for the name, stay for the content.
Sure.
And in that way, there is, come for the sword clinging and stay for the
the message.
The message, and
story.
also what does it mean to look a brother in the eyes as he dies? You know, it is heavy stuff, and but it is taught to kids, you know, early high school, and it's something that we in our putting on the show have been trying to encourage. You know, obviously it's the middle of summer break right now, but the hope is that it is something that is reckonable. These heavy themes. The reason that these plays are so enduring and that we keep coming back to them is because they lay out these things that are difficult to talk about and difficult to fathom in a way that is digestible and that can affect you, not just to be read and understood in a news article, but to be affected in the heart.
I think many audience members will be affected by this piece.
I hope so.
That certainly is the goal.
I mean, I've been affected by it, certainly.
Well, tell them where they can find out more information, friend.
Well, they can find more information at yorickensemble.com. Hamlet opens on the Needham Town Common on September 5th, with shows September 5th and 6th, 11th, 12th, and 13th. Free admission, no reservation required. Bring your own seating, bring a friend, bring a snack, bring a coat, weather permitting. And we look forward to seeing you on the Needham Town Common.
Break all the legs, friends. This sounds like a really fabulous production, and I wish you all the absolute best.
Thank you.
That brings us to the end of another episode of Arts for the Masses. If you are an arts organization in Massachusetts or beyond, maybe you're doing something virtual, please be in touch. I'd love to have you on the program so we can talk about your mission and how you are bringing arts to your community. I'm Ryan Maliar. Thanks for watching.